Okay, looks like we're live. The camera's a little low, so I'll pop it up a bit. How is everybody? Yes, we're live. We've got another 2 hours of bullshit to play with here. So let me know whether you're here. Let me know who you are, where you are, all the usual stuff, because I've got a very busy live stream this time. I've got 11 different talking points this time around. It's going to be bigger than Ben-Hur. So just let me know whether I'm talking to dead air or whether I'm talking to human beings or not. It'd be nice to know. Nobody else in the house who's human is awake. Middle-aged geek girl still in bed. The cats are outside. Got the whole house to myself. So just waiting for the chat to wake up. Hello, knock, knock, knock. Yeah, lots of things. I've got a haul. I've got a book haul. I've got some news. Hey, Dick, how you doing? Hey, Carol. Hey, For Sale. Hi, Deb. How you doing? See, I've got an interim beanie until I get one you're sending us, Deb. Yeah, hi, Indie Phantom. Yeah, we're doing great. Damien's here as well. And it's like, 2 o'clock in the morning where he is. But yeah, everything's going well here. Weather report, 6 degrees centigrade, and the sun isn't going to rise for another half an hour or so. Hi, Dealey. Hey, Lee. Lee's here too. Yucky da. Yep. So everybody is here. The gang is assembling. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about. It's raining in Western Australia, according to Damien. It's not raining here. It's not likely to rain today. But I've got a very busy day coming up. Got a lot of things to do. Got to go over the other side of town. We're having dinner with the outlaws and the family. All sorts of things. Ralph is here as well. Yeah, live long and prosper. Let me get my hands right. There you go. Picture perfect day in Connecticut. Yep. Sunny with the chance of fascism. Sorry about that. But yeah, lots of stuff. Today here in Melbourne, Dick says it's cloudy and windy in Dover. Here in Melbourne, we've got the dumbest public holiday. Well, second dumbest public holiday. It's a king's birthday weekend because we're still technically attached to the British Empire. So they give us a public holiday for Queen Victoria's birthday, which becomes the king's birthday. Used to be a lot more fun. The king's birthday weekend used to be a lot more fun in the 60s and 70s. But we got a public holiday for today. I didn't know about it until 2 days ago because not working in a 9 to 5, I don't know about public holidays. But when I was a kid, back when dinosaurs ruled the earth, the Queen's birthday weekend, as it was then, was really fun because it was Cracker Night. And for a month before Cracker Night, shops would sell fireworks. They wouldn't just sell the ones that turn into big fountains of sparks and shit like that. We had skyrockets. We had exploding fireworks, penny bungers, tuppenny bungers, everything like that. And kids would save up their pocket money and buy tons and tons of small explosive devices. And then on the Saturday, which would have been 2 days ago, they get to let them off for Cracker Night. You build a bonfire in the backyard. You light off a whole bunch of fireworks and hopefully don't lose an eye or a finger. But so we get that. But we don't get that anymore. Let's see. Christian McGangus says all holidays have arbitrary reasons behind them. Yeah, but this one's pretty dumb. Lee says we get trooping of the colours in the UK. I'd just rather have an egalitarian society. I agree totally, Lee. You and I are on the same page. Deb says 10 degrees C at the moment in Nipaluna, Hobart. You're 4 degrees warmer than we are. There's something wrong there because you're further south. Damien says in Western Australia, we have King's birthday in the end of September, beginning of October. Last week, we had Western Australia Day. Cool. Yeah. The worst Cracker Night I had, the worst Queen's birthday or Cracker Night I ever had was, by the way, give the video a thumbs up if you could, because it helps make more people aware of it. We put all the fireworks we had into shoe boxes because we had a couple of cardboard shoe boxes, my brother and I. And so my younger brother, I had my shoebox of fireworks away from where we were letting off the fireworks. So he goes over to where my one is and lights a sparkly, one of those little kind of sparkler things, and drops it into my box full of fireworks. And the whole lot went off in about 10 seconds. Worst cracker night ever. But I miss fireworks. I mean, we had good fun with those, particularly the bungers. They're about that long. The penny bungers were about that long. Tuppenny bungers were a lot fatter. And you'd light them and throw them and they'd explode. And you could like throw them into creeks and rivers and scare frogs. But all of that stuff was fun. We also had lots of skyrockets, had little tiny ones that just zoomed off. And if you were naughty, which of course I never was, you could lay them on the street and shoot them down to cars coming down the street. Yeah, you put the rockets in a milk bottle, Damien says. But no, we used to shoot them under cars. Freaked out the cars. But we did it. And I kind of miss that. And of course, there were always stories about people being mean to pets and things like that. But we always kept our pets indoors when we were lighting the fireworks. And yes, I know it does upset dogs and cats, and I probably wouldn't do it now. But it was part of growing up, and it was part of learning physics and other things that did me no good at all in adult life. So that's what this weekend, the dumbest public holiday we have in Australia, and this is controversial, is Anzac Day, which celebrates, returned servicemen and things like that. But what it actually commemorates is an unsuccessful invasion of Turkey that happened during World War I, which is Winston Churchill's idea. You've seen the movie Gallipoli, so you know the story of that one. Picks a strategically stupid place to invade Turkey, which was an ally of the Germans at the time, and turned it into a meat mincer for Australia, New Zealand, and other service people. The Dardanelles were a stupid place to try to fight a land war with Turkey. And we have a public holiday commemorating that. Deb says, I used to love the Queen's Ball in Hobart when all the queer trans allies would get together and party. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's turning it into something useful and something inclusive and something kind of groovy. And by the way, it is Pride Month in, I think, all of the world. I don't know about Australia because we have all of our Pride parades and things in February and March. But happy Pride Month to everybody who celebrates. This channel is an ally and will always be an ally. So, yeah, all of that stuff used to happen in the past. So let me just have a look. I've got my list here of things. I'm going to tick them off. By the way, these pens I've got are really good. These pens are the best. Deb says, yep, Anzac Day has become a ridiculous excuse to celebrate war. I agree. And hi, Dog's Dad in Northern California. And Deb says, every month is Pride Month. I'll agree with that. Okay, so we cross off stupid poverty holiday from the list. That leaves 10 things to talk about. But, yeah, lots and lots of movie stuff. I do have to correct something as well. Damien says, we have Pride Month display in the library I work. Great. There was this one in America. I've just seen it on the news, and I hope it's accurate, where a couple of anti-rainbow women went to their local library and took out all of the books related to LGBTQIA plus stuff and kept them out they were going to keep them out for all of Pride Month and not return them till after Pride Month because they're the reason we can't have nice things. The library put out a shout out to the community, and the community replaced all the books by actually buying them themselves. And they ended up with twice as many LGBTQIA plus friendly books in their local library because the community comes together. Zoe Adams says 4th of July is London Pride. Hi, how you doing, Zoe Adams? Carol says, sadly, we have too many idiots here in the UK. Wish they'd ban the public having fireworks and make them silent and professional displays only. Dog's Dad, we're fine. Sal's asleep, middle-aged good girl's asleep, the cats are out of the house, and everything's going nicely here. But oh yeah, that's the thing. Replacing fireworks. There was a big display. Sydney's my hometown, and I used to live in Glebe, not too far away from Darling Harbour. And they had a big display of drones, a night display of drones. Like I think it was 98 drones to form patterns in the sky, replacing fireworks. Big display. I think it was celebrating something with New Zealand because I know a silver fern was made with the drones. So they had this big thing going on at Darling Harbour about a month ago. And something happened with the software and the drone location software. And about 96 of the drones dropped into Darling Harbour and they had to be fished out. They've really got to get that nailed down before it replaces fireworks. But there is some footage around of all these nice patterns of drones forming silver ferns and all sorts of things in the sky. And then all into the drink. Yeah, the book was so cool. I love the fact that communities come together to work around censorship, because censorship's just a speed bump in our age, particularly with online stuff. But people actually went out and bought the books to replace all the books in their local library. So the library now has twice as many LGBTQIA plus friendly books in the library. That's like that saying, there's nothing quite as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And inclusion is an idea that's time has come. Damien says, I love Daniel's Donuts just opened in WA. See, there's my Daniel's Donuts beanie. Interesting fact, Damien. At Hogan's Corner, about 2 kilometres from here, the original Daniel's Donut shop's there. It started in my hood. And it's named Daniel's Donuts because it was actually a bakery originally. This is like 20 years ago when we first moved here. It was actually 25 years ago. And it was a bakery rather than just a donut place. And the son of the owner, a guy called Daniel, died in a car accident. I think it was a car accident. And so they renamed the place Daniel's Bakery. And then they phased over to doing donuts and pies and milkshakes and things like that. And then they franchised, and it's spreading like a melanoma. But the original Daniel's Donuts is about 2 kilometres away from here. And I got one of their beanies because they were cheap and they're warm. Dogstad says, both my adult kids are gay. I just don't understand why there's so much fuss. Good people are in the end good people. 100%. And I mean, I was so lucky when I was I grew up in a very, very, very homophobic milieu in the western suburbs of Sydney. But when I grew up and I started hanging out with people, mostly in the science fiction community, there were so many queer people there that you couldn't maintain homophobia. All of that shit I was taught as a kid, I had to unlearn, and I unlearned it. And so many of the people I know who are really good people, and you got to remember, this is like 40 more years ago. Intersex people, trans people, gay people, lesbian people, queer people in general. The whole community was a sanctuary for people on the rainbow spectrum. And I learned so much from them. They had no obligation to teach an uneducated idiot from the western suburbs of Sydney, but their compassion and their kindness sold me on that. And I totally love that. I think it's incredibly important. I've been in LA ever since. In 1989, I was a crowd marshal at the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, which was great. I've been a crowd marshal at Pride here in Melbourne. It's just, I mean, I'm always for the underdog. because I've always been an underdog. And people who are bullied and people who are marginalized, I always try to have their back. And there's just so much more interesting people who are in the queer community. There are incredibly creative people, there are funny people, there are wise people, there are compassionate people. I mean, the f and even, like, asexual people. I know a lot of really, really good asexual people. It's just so inclusive, and it's my tribe as much as this channel is, as much as the science fiction community is. Yep, Lee says, "Allies for the win." Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I don't think I could be honest with myself and not be an ally. You've gotta I mean, I'm comfortable with the fact that I'm a cishet male. I find women endlessly fascinating and attractive, but that comfortable with that I've got no problem with other people's sexuality. But yeah, so Damien says my art works on costumes for Pride in New South Wales, for parades in New South Wales. There's just so much work goes into Mardi Gras, particularly in Sydney. It's amazing. Even in 1989, the parades were fantastic, and I was the crowd marshal. We're wearing pink t-shirts, keeping people behind the barriers for safety reasons as much as anything. And when Sydney does its gay and lesbian Mardi Gras, the first parade float is always dykes on bikes. Dykes on enormous Harley Davidson bikes. And the dykes on bikes came ripping around and they stopped in front of me. Not because I was there, but because that was the stopping place so they could wave at the crowds and things like that. And a really beautiful topless woman jumped off the back of her girlfriend's bike, ran over and gave me a lolly for working so hard, and then just went back to her bike and zoomed off. Deb says, "Yeah, I'm straight, but my gay friends don't hold that against me." Yeah, it's not our fault. We were born this way. And Carol says, here, two of my friends came out when I was a teen. I knew they were before. It never bothered me. I saw both of them shunned by others in my year. Made me so mad. Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a performative cruelty that goes on, particularly with trans people at the moment. They're the latest people to be vilified. The moral panic against trans women in particular is incredible. I mean, there's just so many good trans people I know. And just so many my friend Kayla in Nevada came out as trans just last year, and she's incredibly happy. And my friend Cheryl Morgan, I've known for how long have I known Cheryl for now? About 40 years. Yeah, not 40 years, about 30 years. Cheryl and I have been close friends because our birthdays are a day apart. Just so many wonderful people that you'd be an idiot to shun them because you learn so much, you can share so much, and particularly trans people at the moment need to know that other people have their backs. Zombie Adam says, have I seen Backrooms? I just did a video about Backrooms. You got to catch up. And yeah, I have seen Backrooms and I loved it. I saw it on the same day as I saw Obsession. By the way, Obsession, speaking of Obsession, I did the review of Obsession in my last video. I mispronounced the name of the actress who stars in it. Indy Navarrete. I pronounced it as Indy Navarrete, but it's actually Indy Navarrete. And I wanted to correct the record on the on this particular live stream because she's half Australian. Her mum's Australian. Doug says, hit that on the head. Good people are just good people. Absolutely. And Carol said, as Dog Dad said, a good person is a good person, a friend of a friend, regardless of who they love. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that simple. Yeah, there are people who weaponize hatred, and some people do it for religious reasons and use that as the excuse. And some people do it for political reasons, and some people do it because they're just assholes, and some people do it because they secretly lust after their own gender. But we've got to fight against hatred, And social media in particular, and news media more specifically, is really being used as a way of beating the fuck out of people who are different. And we've really got to fight that every way we can. And this tiny little channel does exactly that. So I've got to cross Indian Nav already off the list. See, I do have a big list here. Yep, Ralph says, infinite diversity and infinite combination. Damien says, stop reading newspapers. Fight the good fight, says Forsyth. Absolutely. I read the Guardian. I do read The Age, but with a grain of salt. I read ABC News. But particularly where you are, Damien, in WA, the newspapers are horribly partisan, and they're partisan in a way that serves billionaires. So over your way, it's really bad. Carol says, we have a few trans people locally. I'm just jealous they can look good in heels. No, I really can't. I don't like heels. Heels always look uncomfortable to me. Heels are, I've got big feet to start with. I've got like size 14s. And heels always look like people are torturing themselves. Damien says, we have one newspaper town. Yeah, that's why I like the fact that news outlets are now diversified onto the internet. And I will look at a whole bunch of different ones. Some of them I don't pay for because it's got a secret way of looking at news articles without giving money to the wrong people. And using that lets me see what people are saying without clicking on their website and letting them get the ad revenue. Forsale says, high heels are murder on the arches. I've got flat feet. I don't even have arches. But I can understand that. Yeah, for some people, if you like them, go for it. But for me, I find them, just the look of them is a bit uncomfortable for me. I don't have a fetish on that. Carol says, gave up on papers and news, all have agendas. Me too, heels are torture. Yeah, I think keeping up on the news and keeping up on what's going on in the world's important. I don't like the idea of not being aware of it's like checking the weather. You got to see when the storms are coming. You got to see when the nice weather's coming. You got to see what the world's doing. But trying to find a way to do that without listening to somebody's agenda is increasingly difficult. Forsyth says, SBS News every morning. I love SBS. Here in Australia, there's special broadcasting service. Does a really good news broadcast, a number of them, with news from across the world. It's unpartisan. ABC News does that, though there are a few bits of it that I'm not terribly comfortable with. But yeah, really keeping up with the world's important, but not letting somebody else mess with your head while you do that is becoming increasingly a skill. Deb says, we have 3 newspapers in Tasmania, the Mockery, the Exaggerator, and the Egg Timer, aka the Mercury, the Examiner, and the Advocate. Yeah, it's a good thing you got good pies down there, otherwise nobody'd ever go there. That and the Museum of Modern Art, which I really like. Carol says, we gave up buying but still peruse the web for news. Just take it with a lot of salt these days. Yeah, error checking the news. There used to be a thing with journalism where there was a kind of code of honor in good journalism. But since Murdoch took over a lot of stuff and all the other demagogues, that's gone out the window. So you've got to kind of error check news broadcasts and news summaries even. And I know that's too much for some people. You're working, you're dealing with family, you're cooking meals, you're cleaning houses, and all that kind of thing. So it is increasingly difficult for people, and I'm fully aware of that. Yeah, there's a Labor government in Western Australia. Queensland government is a shocker. because they've got a conservative government, one of the few in the country. And they've been doing things like any Indigenous people at high levels in the public service there or in various government-funded groups, they're slyly kicking them out because Queensland, I would argue, is our most racist state because all of the aging racists in Victoria and New South Wales migrate to Queensland for the sunshine. And so you get a distillation of conservative people, which is why Pauline Hanson and One Nation have come there. We got very political in here. Do we want to stay on the very political or do we want to move on to movies? Because I've got some interesting Australian movie news. I'm going to wait for the chat to answer me because I am a river to my people. Movie says for sale. Chat about movies says Damien. Here's the story, and I'll bring it up onto my screen. In 1950, Ralph Smart directed a movie here in Australia. It was funded by Ealing in England because Australia's film industry was shit-canned in the 1930s. And a movie was made called Bitter Springs, starring Tommy Trinder and Chips Rafferty, about a family who buy land from the government. This is set early in the 20th century, and go 900 miles out of Adelaide to the land they bought from the government. And what they find out is it's owned by the Indigenous people, and the Indigenous people live there. And there's a tension between the colonizers and the Indigenous people. Eventually, there's a sort of a resolution to it, which I like. But to make this movie, Bitter Springs, which I really like, I think it's a fine movie, they imported 130 Indigenous people, Anangu people, from down near Yalata in South Australia, which is a fair way away. And they used them in the movie as characters. They were the Indigenous tribes in the movie. Something interesting has happened in the last year. People have examined Bitter Springs, and all of the dialogue spoken in Anangu language was improvised by the Indigenous people who are acting. And the groovy thing is, they're now translating what they said and adding it as subtitles to the movie. So before that, there was just, noise in a sense from people who don't speak Anangu. That's what it sounds like to people who don't speak Anangu. But there's been a documentary made, a half-hour documentary about the process of getting translators to translate what the Indigenous people in the movie are saying. And they want to add it as subtitles to all future releases of Bitter Springs. And it's been a bit of a work. I want to see the documentary. It hasn't come out yet. It's called Bitter Springs in Translation. And it's screened each night in Corn in South Australia, which is where the movie was filmed, as part of the state's history festival. So I want to see the documentary, and I know that Umbrella Entertainment released this version of Bitter Springs, but I want a future release, maybe on Blu-ray, with the subtitles for the Anangu language spoken in the movie. And this is really interesting to me because it humanizes and contextualizes the movie in a new way. I mean, that movie's 76 years old. And yet there are new things to do with it and new things to say with it and a way to improve it. For 1950, it had a very enlightened view on First Nations Australians. Not perfect, but still much better than a number of other films. And there were starting to be movies like this one and Jeddah, the Chauvel's Jeddah, which was starting to look at First Nations Australians in a more complex way than any media has previously. I'm so looking forward to getting a copy of this movie. with the Anungu subtitles in it. I think that's incredibly right to do that. Deb says, very conservative government Tasmania argue the most racist out of touch numpties. Brilliant film, Bitter Spring, says Damien. It is. That and The Overlanders are my two favourite Chips Rafferty movies. Doug says, while I acknowledge his iconic status, I'd struggle with Chips Rafferty as a movie star. Yeah. Deb says, my father got into trouble with my mum for drinking with Chips Rafferty at a film premiere. Yeah, Chips did like a drink. Damien said, I had the network Blu-ray release. I missed out on the Umbrella release. Yeah, I'd definitely be buying a copy of this. Should they be able to get it together with the original language subtitles? I mean, this is part of my nation's cultural film heritage, and I want to see it done right, and I will look forward to that. I think if Umbrella can, they probably will get the rights to it. They've got the rights to that already, but to get rights to the subtitles and have them included in definitive versions of Bitter Springs, that just feels like a satisfying thing to me. Deb wants a copy of the subs too. Absolutely. And we have such a weird film history in Australia. Up until the 1930s, Australia was making movies and punching equally with Hollywood. And then a whole bunch of Hollywood studio execs came to Australia and bribed politicians to show more Hollywood movies than Australian ones. We had our own movies, we had our own stars, we had our own movie language, we had Errol Flynn before anybody else did. But there were some shifty deals done by Hollywood studios. And in the 30s and into the 40s, and of course the war messed things up a lot, the Australian film industry all but died. And between about 1950 and 1967, 68, there were very, very few Australian films made by Australians. This one was financed by Ealing in England. And then, of course, we got the John Gorton government and then the Whitlam government supporting and financing Australian film. And that's when we had that big renaissance with the exploitation films. But there is a big film history that we've got to acknowledge, and we should be caretaking it for future generations. So yeah, that's a good news story for me. Let me just cross that off the list. We're getting through the list. So before I talk about what I've been watching, what have other people been watching? What have you guys been watching in cinema? Not necessarily in cinema, but on streaming as well. What's the stuff you recommend? Because I'm going to bring up my letterbox while you're thinking about that. And I'll go through some of the stuff I've been watching. Maybe we got an ad. Because yes, the ads do pay for the videos, but they do slow down the stream somewhat. Deb went to see The Helmet and the Muppet. Yes, I know, Deb. And she enjoyed The Helmet and the Muppet, which is The Mandalorian and Grogu. Doug says, my brother got drunk with Mel Gibson while living Cooper Pedy is filming one of the Mad Max movies. The one with Tina Turner. That would have been a hell of a conversation. Yeah, Mel Gibson was a prick. Always has been a prick. I mean, he nearly punched out a friend of mine who was the flatmate of Mel Gibson's girlfriend at the time. But yeah. Forsyth's rewatching Alfred Hitchcock Presents. 2 seasons down, 5 to go. Damien's been watching The Long Good Friday. Last month, watched Westerns from Imprint. Cool. Yeah, those two Western releases from Imprint, the box sets, have got some real bangers in them. Kind of Westerns that really don't get enough love. Oh, yeah, me. Been watching Spider Noir. It's great in black and white. Yeah, I watched Spider Noir. I watched it in color. I could go back and watch some of it in black and white if I wanted, but Spider Noir was fun. I enjoyed that and had a good time with it. And Nick Cage nails it. Deb says, thoroughly enjoyed the Helmet and the Muppet. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but it touched all the boxes for me as a conclusion to The Mandalorian. Damien's going to watch crime films this year. Lee's been catching up with it For All Mankind over the past few days. Feel like it jumped the shark, to be honest. That's a pity. I know they're doing a kind of set in the same universe series from the Russian point of view. I don't know why, because tell the next story. Don't keep telling the same story from different viewpoints, as far as I'm concerned. Deb's been watching Spider Noir and Widow's Bay. I'm hearing things about Widow's Bay. Don't know a lot about it yet, but I've been hearing things. What have I been watching? Can't talk about that because I'm going to talk about that in the next video. I've been finding television movies on YouTube from the 1970s, and also other movies from YouTube. Just what have I got that's worth talking about? I watched like a spy movie starring Robert Lansing called Danger Has Two Faces. I watched that, which is like from the 1960s. It was supposed to be the start of a TV series, as indeed a lot of these television movies were. Come on, let me just get there. So I watched that. I'm currently in the middle of watching a movie called Target Harry, which stars Vic Morrow. And it's the weird thing about it is it's a Roger Corman film from the early 70s. I know nothing about it. It was originally done as a TV pilot, but Roger and Gene Corman added a bit of nudity to it and sold it as a movie about it's a kind of action adventure with Vic Morrow playing a private charter pilot traveling between the south of France and Turkey. Haven't finished watching it yet, but it does look like a lot of fun. I watched a movie from the 1960s called The Bamboo Saucer, starring Dan Duryea. It's about an alien spaceship that lands in Nepal, and both the Chinese and the Americans are going after it. Ends up with a very science fiction ending. Last movie Dan Duryea made. It's fun. It's dumb. It's 1960s, but it's fun. Doug's been watching Fight or Flight with Josh Hartnett. It's like Bullet Plane on a Train. Cool. Deb watched Morocco 7 and loved the nostalgia buzz. Yeah, I like Morocco 7. Yep. And yeah, Robert Lansing was in a whole bunch of stuff in the 1960s and the 1970s. So, yes, I watched that. Let me see what else I watched. I watched a movie from the 1940s called The Bongo. It's about a girl who, her and her father are on an airplane in Africa. The airplane crashes. She gets raised by a gorilla and grows up to be Julie London. It's very bad. The gorilla says it's not too bad, but it's very bad. And the weird thing is, they actually treat the indigenous people well in this movie. It was on Tubi, of all places. It kept popping up on my recommend thing, and I watched it. It's very basic and very low budget. You know, people running around the Los Angeles Arboretum with boxes on their heads and all of that kind of stuff. So what's that? Adam says, my mum loved Dan Duryea. There's an episode of Route 66 with Dan Duryea in it, playing an alcoholic, because in real life he was. It's some of the best acting I've seen in an actor on television ever. I'm going to have to find a copy of that episode because it's just powerful, compassionate, heartbreaking acting in an episodic TV show. Fantastic stuff. Deb says Tubi's great for those hidden gems. Damien's also watching Sherlock Holmes with Jeremy Brett and season 2 of The Invaders, which was screened on ABC in the 1960s. A Larry Cohen show. Yep. Yeah, there's just so much stuff. YouTube seems to be kind of casting a blind eye on people putting out old movies they don't have the rights to. So if you look around, you find channels like the Boomer channel. There's going to be movies there that I definitely know they don't have the rights to show, but YouTube is allowing them to. And there's some weird and wonderful stuff there. And there are also things like film masters who do have the rights to various things and are putting out premium editions of things on physical media. And they'll throw some weird random B pictures from the 50s and 60s up on their YouTube channel as well. YouTube's becoming a complex thing these days. And I'm not helping, of course. Adam says, lots of movies on YouTube will probably get taken down pretty quickly. Yeah, but while you can grab them, you might as well. The worst thing on YouTube at the moment, as far as movies are concerned, are really, really bad Bob Hope movies from the 60s, when Bob Hope's career was going down the shitter. He made really bad movies like Cancel My Reservation, which I watched in spite of myself on YouTube. Just, yeah, the humor and the comedy is bad. The setups and the plots are shit. Some of the actresses are quite charming, but really, yeah, why? Deb says, Newcastle After Dark gets around the copyright issue by discussing the film. Yeah, that's the excuse they use anyway. But yeah, there's some. I mean, Tubi has, as we've said, tons of stuff. And the nice thing is, I've actually got the Opera browser here, which has a built-in VPN, so I can pretend to be in America and look at Tubi through the lens of that Opera browser and see a whole bunch of shit which isn't on Australian Tubi. And I can do it with Europe as well. Damien says, yeah, those films don't stand up, really unfunny. Yeah, the Bob Hope movies that he didn't do with Bing Crosby are just haphazard. Yeah, the road movies out of them are great. I like the road movies because Breaking the Fourth Wall really works. They've got a little bit of the Hills of Pop and feel about them. Yeah, some of the jokes are dated, but you can always look up the references if you want to. But the road movies, except for The Road to Hong Kong, which is shit, are pretty cool. Hi, Franny. How you doing? What's the weather like over there? But yeah, so I've been watching a little bit of that. Yeah, just casually. I can even watch one of those stupid Bob Hope movies while I'm editing a video, and that is just noise in the background, basically. But I can do it. There's something else I wanted to mention. I'm just going to scroll up my letterbox here and find it because it was bad. If I put it into the letterbox at all, which I'm not sure I did. I mean, I use Letterboxd basically to keep a track of the movies that I've watched. And I get pissed off when I forget to put one in because it means my movie count's down. Let's have a look here. Oh, geez, I watched a lot of shit. A lot of shit. Okay, I've talked about that, talked about that. No, I've forgotten it. I haven't put it in here. Oh, I've got a recommendation for you. 2024 film, which is Spanish but in English, if that makes sense, which I'm sure it does. It stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Rafe Spall, Lorraine Bracco's in there, Timothy Spall's in there. It's called Rich Flu, and it's a metaphorical film. Basically, the story is there is a disease, a fatal disease going around, and it attacks and infects only the wealthiest people. Their teeth go glowing white and blue, and then they die suddenly. And the richer you are, the earlier it happens. And then it kills off all the rich people, and then it kills off the next lot of people who are wealthy and have stuff. And it keeps going down the line. And it's a metaphor. It's not meant to be like a serious, how does this infection get around movie. And the character played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead works for a billionaire, and the billionaire gives her $900 million because he knows if he doesn't give away everything he owns, he's going to die. And she's supposedly to use the money to buy him artworks, and goes to an auction at Buckingham Palace because the British royals are trying to sell off their shit as well. And she's bidding on a painting, and King Charles dies in front of her. And so all the rich people are trying to flee and an exodus. And then suddenly there's a refugee crisis of cashed up white people trying to get into Africa and to be poor so that they avoid this disease. It's on Netflix in Australia, but I don't know whether it's been in other markets as well. Not a perfect film, but it's an interesting concept. And it does talk to some social issues in quite a different way. There's some really incredible crowd scenes. There are bits of mad humor in it, and there are also bits of tragedy in it as well. Adam says, Road to Hong Kong is shit, don't hold back on the criticism. Hey, it's my brand. If I think something's shit, I will say that. Doug says, excellent YouTube channel called Dub Jack's Film, shows excellent old British movies. Okay, I will definitely make a note of that. Thanks, Doug. Doug says, I like classic Bob Hope. Cat and the Canary is great. Yeah, that's the 40s stuff, but in the 60s, he was really struggling to stay relevant. Friday says, I made a terrible mistake this week. I watched the Sydney Toller Charlie Chan film on YouTube. I'd only seen Will Owen Charlie Chan films before. It was so bad. It is, indeed. The Charlie Chan films are just totally crazy. It's like the Mr. Moto films with Peter Lorre. And then 20 years later, they made one with Henry Silva in it as a kind of wannabe James Bond film. But, yeah, so I watched Rich Flu, which I can kind of recommend. I think it's got something different to say. I also watched I think it's Norwegian. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm going to check before I say that definitively. Just let me check my start page. Norwegian. I got it right. I saw a Norwegian film called The Ugly Stepsister, which is a story of Cinderella told from the viewpoint of one of the stepsisters. I'm not going to say anything about it apart from the fact it's got a lot of body horror in it, and I liked it. I think it's really interesting. You should check it out. If you can find it on stream, you find it. If you can find it by other means, find it. But The Ugly Stepsister, no notes. I think it's fantastically good at what it does. It talks about the beauty myth and the things women do to acquire what they perceive to be beauty. It's talking to the modern age, but it's set in like Middle Ages. Like the movie a lot. Deb's been catching up with episodes of The Champions of Department S on classic British television. Yeah, I like The Champions. Champions are fun. And that kind of eerie sound sting when they use their powers was always good. I've been watching a little bit of those myself. I don't have physical copies of The Champions, though. If anybody finds a copy of The Champions in an op shop or a thrift store, just send it to me, because I can use a copy of that. Department S I've got. Jason King I've got. Peter Wingard was the reason I wore a cravat in the 1970s. What else I've got on the list? I'll finish what I've been watching. Let's just kind of stay on track here. Nah, nothing there really I want to talk about. Alexandra Bastido is my dad's favourite, says Adam. You should check out The Bare-Breasted Countess then, which I think is a Jess Franco movie, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, grab the pen, cross something else off the list. What I've been watching. We're getting through the list. Damien says, Champions was one of my favourites. I had a colouring book of it in New Zealand. That's kind of cool. I got to deal with something. Yeah, the Bloods played a bride. Alexandra Bastille was every dad's favourite, says Deb. Yeah. After I talked about Backrooms and Obsession, I got a lot of comments on that particular video saying, when are you going to make a movie? And I found a definitive answer for it. I will say this, I'll underline this by saying, I do not have any organizational skills. And I'm undisciplined as hell. I'm random. I'm just who I am. I would be the worst person in the world, with the possible exception of Donald Trump and his cohorts, to direct a movie. I just don't have the discipline or the skills or anything else to do that. And, I'd have to wrangle people. I'd have to get people in to be other things like DPs and lighting people and gaffers and best boys and shit like that. Not anywhere in my skill set do I have the ability to do any of those things. So please stop asking me if I'm going to make a movie, because I'm not. I'm going to make these tiny little documentary things I do on YouTube, and that's it. And somebody asked me when I'm going to make a movie, and I said exactly that. And then they said, if I did, what kind of movie would I make? And I got facetious. I'll be honest with you. I did get so facetious with the answer. And I said lesbian adult films, which I hope underlined that enough that it wasn't particularly a problem. But I really don't. I mean, I know what my strengths are and my weaknesses. And to be honest with you, there's a lot more weaknesses than there are strengths. But I can analyze a film and I can take it apart. I can contextualize it. I can vomit it out to a YouTube video. But I can't make a movie. Let's see. Friday says, picked up a few DVD box sets this week in Pacific. Inspector Morrison, Dad's Army. Cool. Damien read David Stratton's book, Australia at the Movies. Yeah, I've got that just up here with his other two books as well. And Forsyth says, that would only take me away from my videos. Yeah. I'd end up being Chris Stuckman and making Shelby Oaks and nobody liked it. Yep, Eric Sykes. Funny also got £3, the Eric Sykes Classic Collection, The Plank and Other Stories. Yeah, The Plank is just such a cool little film, and everybody's in it. If you haven't seen The Plank, you should check it out. By the way, Super Chats do get the fart gun. Only problem with this hat is it keeps flipping up above my ears and it hurts. Let's see, it's gone to 7 degrees. We've gained a degree in temperature while we've been doing this video. Okay, we can cross off making a movie from the list. Damien says there are 2 versions of the plank. Is there an X-rated version as well? Version with a topless Harry Seacombe in it? I'm going to do a movie haul in a little bit, but before I do that, I found a lucrative side hustle. It's tiny, just big lucrative side hustle. YouTube keeps asking me to do surveys because I'm a kind of small YouTuber on the scale of things. And so they'll send me a link, and I know it's them because I check. And they'll ask me to do surveys about the creative process of doing YouTube videos. And it usually takes me about 10 minutes or so. And I'll give them my honest opinion saying, I think this works, I don't think that works. No, I'm not going to do shorts because I'm a long form YouTuber, and that's just where I can best express myself. And so I do the surveys, and about 2 weeks later, they send me an Amazon gift card, usually for about $50 Australian. And they've done this like 2 or 3 times so far. So it's a nice little earner because I get an Amazon gift card and I immediately go to amazon.com.au and buy movies with it. And so I've got some interesting things coming up for the channel. And it's all because I'm answering surveys for YouTube in the futile hope that they'll improve the process for YouTube creators. Damien says there's no Harry Seacombe topless, but there's Harry and an elephant. Doug says Eric Sykes remade the plank, the 1967 version of the plank, in 1979, and both are excellent. Cool. Yeah, so basically, I'm giving feedback to YouTube, and they're giving me Amazon gift cards. I think it's because I am a creator on the platform. So that's kind of sweet. And I've got a couple of things on the way that I'm going to be talking about on the channel. And now I'm going to do my haul. I don't have an enormous haul of things because I've been being frugal. I want to pay off the credit card. But I have got a few things, some of which are interesting. First thing I actually got from another YouTuber. In fact, the first 2 things I got from the same YouTuber, Julian over at Collector Creations. He's in Melbourne. I know Julian. He reviews movies. In a sense, he reviews buying movies as much as anything. Yeah, I can buy things that are interesting, Damien, with those vouchers. But he had a competition on his channel because someone gave him 5 copies of a couple of things. And I happened to win both of them. And I got a copy of this horror movie, which I hear good things about, and the dog doesn't die. Good boy. A horror movie done from the viewpoint of a dog. So I did get a copy of Good Boy without paying for it, which is the ideal situation. It's got a few extras in it. Haven't watched it yet. I'm saving that one for later. And I think Sal wants to watch it as well. It's a good idea. It took him about 2 years to make it with the owner's dog in it. But yeah, I got a copy of that. Small film. Hear good things about it. Has anybody seen it? Adam says, spoiler, but they're never going to kill the dog. Yeah, they kill a dog in Rich Flu, but in a very funny way. And it's not really killed. So there's that. But yeah, Good Boy. I'm looking forward to watching that. And the other thing I got from Collector Creations and Julian is a series in the same universe as the Anne Rice Interview with a Vampire series called Talamasca, The Secret Order. About, what's it about? It's about a secret organization in the vampire universe. Haven't watched it yet. It runs about 8 episodes. It's on 2 discs. And I got that as a freebie as well, as a competition win. So thanks to Julian and Collector Creations channel. Go and check his stuff out. I'm actually going to be in his documentary about collecting physical media. He's still working on that because documentaries are not something you cook up quickly. So I'm going to be in his documentary. I like Julian. We're going to do that. Deb says Good Boy is on my list to watch. Yeah, cool. But so I got that, and I got Talamasca, which I think has some good actors in it, from what I recall, looking at it on IMDb. I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning this morning. Before I'm doing a live stream, I'm churning with ideas. I can't sleep. Adam says, "Oh God, I thought you said Terra Masalata, a truly scary thing." I don't mind Terra Masalata. Yeah, caviar dip. I like it in moderation. You can't guts down a lot of it, but I do like it on a bit of crusty bread. Next thing I actually forked out and bought, because I've talked about it on the channel because I watched it. It's one of the 2 truly great Richard Linklater movies that came out in the last year. I already had a couple of Nouvelle Vague, his movie about the making of Breathless. And I did get a copy of Blue Moon with Ethan Hawke, Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott. A movie about Larry Hart and, to a certain extent, Richard Rodgers as well. Beautiful, charming movie, and Ethan Hawke is fantastic in this. It's funny, it's witty. It's just a lot of fun. Adam says pink gritty devil's food for Terra Masalata. Keep that up, Adam. I'm going to do a mukbang just eating that stuff on the channel. But yeah, if you haven't seen Blue Moon, highly recommend it. A much better version of the life of Lorenz Hart than Mickey Rooney in Words and Music. But yeah, just a wonderful film. And I determined I was going to get a copy of both Blue Moon and Nouvelle Vague after I watched them online. And indeed, I have done that because I'm still working on that process of refining and getting rid of the stuff I'm not really going to watch again in the collection. It's a very slow process. But movies like this are definitely keepers for me, because I'm a bit of a 20th century Broadway theatre wonk, and I loved it. Deb says, Adam, now I'm hungry. I'd like to see Pink Moon, Pink Gritty Fishy Moon, Blue Moon. Yeah, Blue Moon, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's just charming as hell. Now, I'm going to do a compare and contrast video at some stage between 2 movies that came out in the same year, 1998. One's better than the other, and this isn't the one that's better. I've already got the better movie on 4K, but I only had a really shitty DVD of the other movie. And then I went down to my local op shop, and for $4 I got a copy of Armageddon on Blu-ray, because I'm going to compare and contrast it with Deep Impact at some stage. It's one of those projects I've got. When I haven't got anything else for Science Fiction Saturday, I'll do that. So I got that. I'll tell you the story about when I saw that movie. Friday says, Tarama salad is delicious. I buy 3 pots at a time. Noms. Yeah, I like it too. That's like that joke I do to piss people off. People mention that they do Pilates, and I go, I love Greek food. Adam says, headache-inducing film, but funnish. Yep. Armageddon. I know where I was when I saw Armageddon. I know where I was when I saw Armageddon for the first time. I was in Costa Mesa, California, 4th of July, 1998, and I went to the movies. And I saw it, and I thought, this is shit. And you know the most egregious part of Armageddon, the bit that I don't like the most? And it's not Steve Buscemi getting space madness. Bruce Willis plays the father of Liv Tyler's character. And she's in love with Ben Affleck's character. This arsehole father is policing his daughter's sexuality and her personal life. And I hate that in a movie. I really hate fathers who try to say, how dare you date my daughter, and if you do, you've got to do this and this. That shit doesn't flow with me at all. And it's the thing I hate most about Armageddon is that policing of female sexuality. Finally says, just introduced my friend to The Green Slime last week, the movie that does the whole plot of Armageddon in the first 27 minutes. Yep. Kinji Fukusaka directed that. I actually saw another Kinji Fukusaka movie the other day, but I got to save talking about that for the next video. Adam says, is there a word with more A's than Tarama Salata? I'm sure there is, but I'm not going to think about it. And Damien says, I saw Deep Impact. I liked it better the other. Yeah, you got to remember, Armageddon directed by Michael Bay. Deep Impact directed by Mimi Leder. Much more nuanced and character-based than Armageddon was. And I can't get over the spiky asteroid in Armageddon. Deep Impact got that a lot more accurately because asteroids are just basically mud pies. They're bits of rock and bits of ice and bits of various dust and shit just clumped together. That's what most asteroids are. We only found that out when we pranged a space probe into one. They're basically mud pies, frozen. Deb says Deep Impact's superior as well. And he says Michael Bay movies all look like Ford car commercials mixed with Aerosmith videos. Yeah, it's like the Transformer movies. Watching a Transformer movie is like being a bug sitting on the front bumper of a car when it has a head-on collision with another car. That's basically a Transformer movie. It's just lots of metal going together with occasional Shia LaBeouf. Not my favorite movies. I am actually hearing good things about Masters of the Universe, the new one. Red Letter Media just dropped a video about it that made me want to watch it. Did Armageddon end with a giant Bruce Willis statue? I don't know. I saw it in 1998. I'm going to have to watch it again now. Bay's movies are just bad, says Damien. Yes, you're right. They are, but they make a lot of money, just like other bad things do, like heroin and cocaine. M.E. says, Roger Ebert said the Transformer movies look like junk vomit. Yeah, probably. Yeah, and Masters has bombed at the box office, but that doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. Box office is a fickle thing. And the thing to watch is the Rotten Tomatoes score, because sometimes there are movies that can be good based on 2 metrics on Rotten Tomatoes. Sometimes the critic reviews are really high percentages and the audience reviews are very low. And that can either mean the movie's good or bad, but it sometimes means the movie's really good, but it hasn't found its audience. The other way is that if the critic reviews are low, but the audience has loved it, and that can mean a movie's either bad or good, depending on the movie itself. And I'm hearing good things about Masters of the Universe based on word of mouth from audience, which is really kind of cool. Doug says, Michael Bay movies are generally crap, but I did enjoy the original Bad Boys movie. Never seen a Bad Boys movie for some reason. Didn't like either of the actors. Okay, let's cross that off. Adam says, I never go to Rotten Tomatoes. I don't tend to linger there, but I do find the scores interesting because there are some movies that are superb and they get shit audience scores and great critic scores. And there are other movies that are superb to get the high audience scores and low critic scores. It's a weird metric, but I find it a lot more accurate than IMDb scores. Deb says, the only time I wanted to see Bad Boys was after watching Hot Fuzz. Okay. Adam says, I have an allergy to obnoxious films. How does it manifest? For Sale says, I check out RT after I watch the movies. Yeah, that's not an unreasonable approach. Because sometimes you like a movie and you go, I wonder what other people think. And that's the other thing too. I mean, with Backrooms and Obsession, both of which I enjoyed this week, I was really there were lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of reviews coming out on YouTube about the films. And I assiduously avoided looking at any of them because I always do that. I never look at a review of a movie I know I'm going to review as a new film, because I do get the film critics pass where I just tell them it's a media comp and they give me a free ticket. But I'm very careful about not looking at any reviews before I film the review. Editing's another matter. But I watched Backrooms and then I looked at the Red Letter Media review. I looked at Mark Kermode's review after I recorded. And I kind of like the fact that these, particularly Mark Kermode, who I respect a lot, noticed some of the same things I noticed in the movie and put into my review. And I'm a little worried when I do that kind of thing that I'm going to review a movie and somebody's going to say, you're copying Mark Kermode or you're copying Red Letter Media. I'm very careful not to do that. But if we notice some of the same things and notice parallels with other movies and all sorts of other things like that, that's inevitably going to happen. All respect to both the Red Letter Media guys and Mark Kermode. But I'm really careful about not letting someone else's ideas get into my brain while I'm processing a movie. Yeah. Okay, so what else have I got? I only had this on DVD, so I got a Blu-ray of it for $4. Mad Max 2, Road Warrior, just to keep consistent because I've got the other ones on Blu-ray. So I got that. And the other thing I got, which I'm going to review because I watched all 4 of them, It was really weird. I had an upset tummy the other day. I'm not going to go into details about that because nobody likes that. But I was up at like 3 and 4 in the morning, sitting on the couch with Jill the old cat, and I watched them. Fear in the Philippines, the complete Blood Island films from Severin. Because I got, I think I may even have got the voucher from YouTube, the Amazon gift voucher, and bought that. Adam says, I just sold off a lot of my film collection due to financial issues. Feeling a bit sad, but trying to say that they were just boxes with some plastic inside. Yeah, I've been there. I've had to sell stuff off myself. So lots of sympathy there, Adam. It's tough, yeah. But yeah, so I've got this. Now, these are 4 movies made in the Philippines by American filmmakers, all roughly set on the same island. The first one's a remake of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and that's called Terror is a Man. It was made in 1959. Then we get Brides of Blood, which is set on another island with monsters. Mad Doctor of Blood Island and Beast of Blood. Yeah, Adam says, pretty wild. Eddie Romero. Yeah, there's the inside slipcover. Eddie Romero movies from the Philippines have a lot of the same actors in them, and the last 3 of them have nudity in them. Surprise, surprise, it's female nudity. But the second one's really weird because the second one, the people on the island were irradiated by nuclear testing, and all of the plants on the island mutate, but they do it cyclically. They do it at night. So a normal banana plant at nighttime will be full of tentacles and will grab people. And there's a monster on the island that the island natives are trying to deprecate. And so they do a little bit of a kind of Shirley Jackson lottery and stake out the young girls for the monster to ravish and tear to pieces. That's all I'm telling you about that because I'm going to review these on the channel. But there's the back cover with the fantastic cover art. But this wasn't expensive on Amazon. And because it's a Severin release, tons of extras on it. Schlocky grindhouse movie. And I had a real good time while I was feeling quite unwell watching these Filipino horror movies. Most of the prints are good quality. The first 3 are good quality prints. But the 4th one, Beast of Blood, does have a few scratches on the print because I couldn't find better original media for it, but it's still very, very watchable. But the Eddie Romero, I went on a binge of Filipino horror films with lots of monsters on it. 4th one's pretty good too because it's a sequel to the 3rd one. So Mad Doctor of Blood Island has a direct immediately after that movie finishes sequel called Beast of Blood with the same actor, John Ashley, who started his career doing beach party movies with Frankie and Annette and then went to the Philippines and started making all sorts of films. But if you do have the wherewithal, this one's a pretty good pickup if you want to watch some mad Filipino horror. They range from 1959 to 1972. Damien says that's good. It has extras. Yeah, it does. And they're pretty good extras for the time. Some interviews with some people who were involved. Some of them were archival interviews because, of course, it has been a long time. But, yeah. Yeah, Adam, needing to get rid of stuff because of financial things. Just horrible, mate. Hey, the sun's coming up. I've still got my light on here. I've got a ring light up here. But the sun's coming up. I'll do another bit of a haul, but this haul is something I did in the last century. I dug these out because I'm trying to rearrange things. Yeah, the man cave is still a mess. I fully acknowledge the man cave is still an enormous mess. But I'm kind of going through things somewhat as a part of the slow process of getting this room together. It's the messiest room in the house. You'll be happy to know. And I found my research books. These were really popular about 30 years ago. And they range through a whole bunch of different subjects, which are dear to my heart. I've got the 2 volumes. The first one is Zines, a book about the idea and the way we collect fanzines and write fanzines. There's a whole bunch of stuff by people who write fanzines or wrote fanzines at the time, and wildly groovy stuff. And as a fanzine fan and somebody who's made a number of fanzines in the past, Forsyth says have that book. It's great. It is beautifully detailed, wonderful books. I love the research books and the wild characters they have to write them. Also got volume 2. Fanzines are making a resurgence too in physical copies. And I kind of occasionally dabble with the idea of doing another fanzine. But I'd have to put it out as a PDF if I did. I may still do it at some time. The Modern Primitives book Franny has. So there's lots of stuff about fanzines in this book. The fanzines is such a wonderful thing. When I joined Science Fiction Fandom in 1979, fanzines were really big. There were amateur press associations where people would write fanzines and then make 30 copies of them and send them to an editor. And that editor would then mail out 1 copy of each fanzine to each of the 30 people. They're still going. There's still amateur press associations out there where people write fanzines. They're doing it now via email and PDFs. But fanzines in the physical form are still out there. Says, I have a lot of fondness for the movies I used to have at hand. It's okay, though. When does film collecting become hoarding anyway? That's a good question, Adam. That's why I'm trying to filter my collection now and get rid of stuff that isn't to my current taste. I'm trying to kind of refine things because I don't want to hoard. Forsyth says, I have 8 boxes of vintage comic book fanzines. Cool. And Deb says, I worked on a music zine years ago. Great fun. So glad they're coming back into vogue again. They are. And they're actually becoming art pieces. Art galleries and museums are starting to do exhibitions about fanzines, which is very, very cool. So the fanzine books, I'm going to reread these because they are fun. And then there's the 2 volumes of incredibly strange music with weird 20th century music in it. Lots of Les Baxter in there, Juan Garcia Esquivel, tons of groovy stuff in there about marginalized weird music. And the groovy thing is, I've got Spotify, and I can find things like Xavier Cugat's Mambo on Spotify. It's not perfect. Damien says, I wrote a number of zines in the 80s. Yeah, you did. Yeah, and just so many weird albums get mentioned in this, including Moog synthesizer albums, tons and tons of groovy stuff. There's 2 volumes of it. There's a second volume there with Les Baxter's Space Escapade in there. Whole bunch of stuff. Rusty Warren, which is a great thing. Yeah, Incredibly Strange Music. Does Stop Living Become Mixed Up Zombies? Almost. But yeah, there's like tons of these albums. I've got some as well. I've actually got some of these albums. But yeah, Incredibly Strange Music I really like. And it was a resource for me to look around and then go, okay, that album is available in the second-hand shop. So I'll pick it up. I've got 2 more. Research number 11. Pranks. About really weird pranks that people have pulled. I like this one too. It has an interview with Abby Hoffman, John Cale. Just tons of stuff in it. Pranks is a good one. And it shows some of the really wild pranks people have pulled over time. Adam says, I hope some of those are transgressive stuff. They are. Hang on, my throat's going. Friday says, we used to sell a few punk scenes in the US and local scenes from the uni students at the record shop I worked in the early 90s. Yeah, there were places here in Melbourne like Polyester Books that sold a lot of fanzines. No, they're not recent releases. These are like 30-odd years old, these books. And the last one I got for you, I saved this for last. The Research Guide to Bodily Fluids, which is more than you ever wanted to know about all of your body's fluids. Female ejaculate, sebum, menses, vaginal secretions, milk, earwax, lots of stuff. Friday says Tower Records used to be good for books and zines. They did. I'm going to do something here. Just give me a moment. The bodily fluids one isn't selling for very much, but let's see what things like. You get it for $10 Australian. Incredibly Strange Music Volume 2. Let's try that. Wow. Right at the top, $132. Sitting on a gold mine. Yeah, for so research issued a compact disc with strange music on it. It did. I think I've got it. But yeah, there's some really, really weird music in there. Okay, now I'm gonna check one of the other books. The zines ones aren't selling for that much, about $30 or $40, which is roughly what I paid for them. That's a shame. I was hoping I could be rich. I was going to show you these. Hang on. See, I'm a poor person. Poor Australian person. fake money you put in. It's just paper money in Australian denominations. It goes along with held banknotes. Hi KN. Have I heard of those more Gas and Synth albums? Yeah, I have. I've actually played some of the tracks on Spotify, but there's some really weird stuff. But yeah, it looks like some of those research books can be got on eBay for not too much, though the music ones are going for a lot. But yeah, I was just going through the collection of stuff, working out what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to give away to op shops and other places. But the research ones I'm keeping because I think they're just such a wonderful reference library of those things. And they do have that kind of 80s and 90s punk sensibility about them as well, which I really appreciate. And yeah, I used to go down to Polyester Books in Brunswick Street in Fitzroy, and you could get all that stuff. And Polyester Books was a weird shop because this is back in VHS days. There were movies that were banned in Australia, like Emmanuel in America was banned, and Sarlo was banned. And you could go down to Polyester Books, and they would flog you a copy of both of those movies on VHS. They were pirated, but you could get them. And every now and then the cops would come in and raid them. And then 2 weeks later, the movies would be back in stock. Friday says, I heard about survival research labs from reading zines. They ended up getting the documentary Maimed Artist about Mark Pauline. He blew his thumb up in an explosive accident on VHS. Yeah, those guys were incredible at the time. Kane says those books were gold mines of information pre-internet. Adam, you don't have to shut up. Please, you don't have to shut up. But there were things also, they would sell stuff like the Anarchist Cookbook, which is incredibly legal to own now, but they would sell you copies of that and a whole bunch of those other similar books about doing transgressive and illegal things. And they were very popular. They sold out very quickly in Polyester and other bookshops like that at the time. I miss that kind of bookshop. These days, it's all kind of posh books. There's not that kind of punk, edgy books anymore. It's all about perimenopausal women having their nervous breakdowns in tropical islands and shit like that. But I miss that kind of grindhousey bookshop. Adam says there was a place in Camden, a great bookshop. Now there's nothing but box parks and food halls. It's sad, really. Yeah, absolutely. I do miss browsing. What I miss most is like normal size paperbacks because they're not making them anymore. The economics have gone out of making standard size paperback books. And they're all trade paperbacks now, which are too big to stick in the back pocket of your pants and just go for a walk. Yes, I do have my birthday Kindle, which has a lot of books on it. I do buy books from authors I like for my Kindle, but it's not the same. For Sale says there was a shop in New York City called See Here that had cool zines for sale back in the day. Yeah. Deb says, next time you come to Hobart, I'll take you and Sally to Cracked and Spineless bookshop. It's the best. I've been to Cracked and Spineless when we went there years ago. But, well, I'm happy for you to take us there, Deb. Friday James says, just check Maimed Artist is available on the Internet Archive. You see the mummy go around a merry-go-round made out of rug. Yeah, that's nightmare fuel, isn't it? Adam says London has become box parks and food halls and rubbish commercial theatre. Yeah, that's the thing. There are just so many jukebox musicals turning up here in Melbourne, and people go to see them. People are also seeing that fucking horrible Michael Jackson musical as well. Not only the movie, but there's like a live show of someone pretending to be Michael Jackson. And because of my own childhood abuse issues, I get, and I do get triggered by that shit. And I just find it so enormously repugnant that I tend to go off a bit about it when the opportunity arises. But yeah, just the worst. I think regional towns have got the best stuff at the moment. I don't know what it's like where you are because things vary. But a lot of regional towns in Victoria are where that stuff is. They're where there's secondhand bookshops. Some of them exist. They're where all the crafty places. We have a lot of wheat silos in Victoria because up in the north, particularly up the Wimmera, they grow a lot of wheat. So you've got enormous wheat silos, and they're all getting painted with artwork. So you've got these like 10-story wheat silos with enormous works of art painted on the side of them. And there's a tour you can go, you can drive around rural Victoria, and every town that has a wheat silo has a beautiful piece of artwork of native flora and fauna or the history of the area, famous people in the area, all around it. I don't know why the economics work that way, but I think it's to do with house prices and business prices. But all the really groovy stuff these days is out of the cities. It's in the little towns who are going, we need to bring people to our town. What weird shit can we do? Like steampunk festivals and the Potato Festival, which is down the road from us, about 80k. Or Clunes doing their Booktown festivals every year. Regional festivals are just where all the cool stuff is these days. And that's very groovy. And I know that happens down in Tasmania as well, Deb. Even this time of year, who does a potato festival? Let me just look that up because I have an inquiring mind. Trentham, really nice town, Trentham, has potato festivals. Adam says, is there a sequel to Michael? Where would it go other than Michael versus Prince? Just a music fight. It would deal with the fact that he was finally revealed to be an abuser of young boys. Damien says, City CBD in Perth is dead. I agree the festivals in the regionals. Corporate greed is homogenising every place, says KN. I think country towns are a bit different. Country towns are starting to be where the cool stuff is. Even regional cities like Ballarat and Bendigo here have a lot of groovy stuff. A friend of mine who's a historian and writer, Lucy Sussex, what did that turn? Just went to Ballarat to do a talk. The regional cities have got a little bit of money to play with to bring interesting things to the cities. Deb says, yeah, Dunk Mofo is back this winter. I'm not going to anything because I don't have the money all the time. Yeah, Dunk Mofo is really weird because they have that nude swim in the middle of winter. And while I'm not against nude swims in any way, to do it in Tasmania in winter is just too masochistic for me. I get this PTSD trigger by being very cold, and I would never do that. Adam says, I'm into the idea of a potato festival. Yeah, Trentham has it. Trentham's one of the few places nearby that occasionally snows. And you can drive up there and there's like a layer of snow over things. It's really weird because mostly in the state of Victoria, it's the eastern half and the hills and the Dandenong Ranges and the Snowy Mountains and the Great Dividing Range that get the snow. And Trentham's one of the few places west of Melbourne, northwest of Melbourne, that ever gets snow. Deb says, in previous years, I've seen some awesome Max in Dark Mofo. Cool. Yep. Potatoes are the great, most versatile vegetable ever. Four Star says, did they have a potato salad competition at the festival? I'm not sure. I haven't been there, but I really should get there this year because I think it'd be a lot of fun. And I like Trentham as a town. And they have the best bakery I know of, the Red Beard Bakery in Trentham, which is only open like 3 or 4 days a week. Does fantastic old school medieval style breads. Yes, they've got yeast and stuff in them, but they do spelt breads and all sorts of things. And you can drive up there, which I've done a couple of times, get a crusty loaf of bread, take it home, and the next day it's great as toast. But that night we normally make sandwiches out of it. And their breads are just fantastic. And I don't know of a better bakery anywhere in the state. And they also have antique shops and lots of groovy things like that. It's a nice small town. It's just got a main street, one supermarket, one pub, that kind of thing. Kane says, what takeaway coffee prices like in Australia? It varies. Locally, I pay about $5 for a double shot espresso or a cappuccino. And I know a lot of good coffee shops around here. We have some of the best coffee shops in the world in Melbourne, particularly. And I know where the good ones are. Yeah, stomach's rumbling. I've had breakfast, but I had it like 4 in the morning. It's now heading towards 9 o'clock. So I probably should have a snack or something. But yeah, we have like fantastic coffee here. And that's the thing that amazes me. Occasionally I'll go into a coffee shop in Melbourne and they have bad coffee. And there's no excuse for it at all because the coffee roasters here are terrific. It's not difficult once you know how to keep the standard up. I make really good coffee here. I've got great beans that I get from a place called Mahalia Coffee on the limestone coast of South Australia. They ship it to me. It takes about a day and they do free postage. Once you've got your machine dialed in on the grinder and you've got a fairly reasonable machine, making good coffee is simple. And yet there's a lot of coffee shops in Melbourne in particular that make god-awful coffee. But if you know where the good ones are, about $5 for a decent coffee here, $5 Australian. And yes, I'm a coffee snob because it's the best kind of snob to be. Yeah, stomach won't be rumbling for long because middle-aged good girl's taking me over the other side of town for lunch. So I'll have a tiny snack and then I'll go and have a nice lunch with Sal. That is rumbling, isn't it? Why does that only rumble when I'm on live streams? What are you guys doing to me? But yeah, I think I will go at some stage and see the Masters of the Universe movie. Kane says, I got a Sage Bambino 6 years ago. Between that and the DeLonghi machine, it works. I've saved a fortune on coffee. Yeah, that's the way to do it. And if you look around, you can find beans at a reasonable price. And Mahalia, because I've been subscribed, they send me like 500 grams of beans every 2 weeks. I mostly drink at home and I save money. And because I've subscribed, they've had a price rise on the cost of beans since I started subscribing. But they haven't passed on that price rise to subscribers. And I love that. But yeah, having a nice coffee maker is good. I've got several different ways of making coffee. I've got a cafetiere, the Italian style one. I've got a Vietnamese style drip coffee with a metal filter. I've also got a bunch of other ones where I've got to use coffee filters. But mostly I just make espresso. I had 2 espressos this morning. There's a cup. Ken says, although I don't have a burr grinder at home, just can't pay that amount for a bean grinder. No granulated, no instant coffee. Screw that. Life's too short. Yeah, I was fortunate, Kane, that I got an espresso machine with a built-in burr grinder, and that's useful. But yeah, burr grinders are more expensive, and but because I've got it all in one machine, it just simplifies the whole process for me. And I'm just hoping it never breaks down because I've got it dialed in perfectly to grind the coffee just right so it extracts well and I get a decent cup of coffee 9 times out of 10. In fact, I've got beans due this week. So yeah, Adam says Anthony Head was famous in the 80s for being the Nescafe man in UK TV before he did Buffy. Kane says, have I tried the mocha pot? Yeah, I have. Not a big fan of it because control is a lot more difficult with that than with some of the other means I use. My favorite way of making coffee, apart from the espresso machine, is to grind the beans into my Vietnamese one, which is like a conical sieve of metal, and I pour over the hot water slowly. And I've got one of those gooseneck kettle things to do that with, and I like that as a fallback to doing the espresso if I want to have a big chunky cup of coffee. Before Anthony was Gareth Hunt, and Friday says that next cafe series of adverts made him loved by the nation. Yeah, but instant coffee, I just hate the taste of. I've never had a good instant coffee. I've had some reasonable coffee bags, particularly Muji, the Japanese store that's opened a number of branches here, does a fairly reasonable coffee bag thing where you open a little bag and hang it over your cup, and it's actually got ground coffee in it, and you pour over that. That's not too bad, but instant coffees, I really can't stand the taste of them. Adam says, if you're in a hotel and have no choice, if I know I'm going to be somewhere away, and I do this by going to my in-laws' place, I've actually got a couple of those Muji coffee bag things where I do the pour over coffee. I've got a stash of them at my in-laws' place so that I don't have to drink their Nescafe. Deb says, I don't drink a lot of coffee, but when I do, it's stovetop espresso at home. Perfectly reasonable, Deb. And yeah, but for me, mostly it's the Vietnamese pour over. And if I go to a Vietnamese cafe and get a banh mi or something like that, I'll usually get one of those sweet black Vietnamese coffees as well. Kane says, the jar of coffee ain't cheap either. If you would take a chance on one, yeah, I mean, nothing be worse than paying $12 for a jar of coffee and then finding out it tastes like shit. But yeah, I like coffee. I think coffee for me is a nice morning ritual. I get up, feed the cats, grind the beans, tamp it down. I've got a knock box, where you knock out the portafilter to get rid of the old beans. I've got a knock box that my friend Bruce made me. He 3D printed me a knock box, and it's perfect. Friday says, thoughts on AeroPress? I think you can make good AeroPress coffees, absolutely. It's the pressure that does it. And you make sure that the water's really hot. AeroPress is a nice way of doing it. I know people who go camping who love their AeroPresses. No, I don't give my cats coffee. I've also got a hand grinder, a Japanese hand grinder that's a burr grinder, but it's a lot of work to grind all the coffee. But if my burr grinder ever breaks, I've got the Japanese backup. Ken says, I had an AeroPress, haven't used it in ages. I think the rubber's falling apart now. That can happen. Though, from what I understand, replacement parts for AeroPresses aren't terribly expensive if you want to go back to that. And AeroPresses themselves are one of the cheaper ways to make coffee. But yeah, I've got a whole bunch of different coffee makers. I've got a great big one with an enormous lever on it, which you put in really, really hot water, and then you just pressure this stuff down, and it makes really thick and lovely coffee. What do I think of coffee pods? I don't like them particularly, but Sal likes them. I've had a couple of Nespresso coffee pods at the Nespresso store that are okay, but Sal has them all the time, and she likes them. But when we go to a shopping centre that has an Nespresso store, I'll go in and they'll give me a sample, and I'll get a free cup of coffee that way. And I usually get one of their darkest, strongest roasts, which doesn't taste fantastic, but it's a free coffee. What about catnip? Luna Stone. Yeah, Luna loves catnip. Jill doesn't. So 2 cats. Jill, the older cat, doesn't like or reacts to catnip. Luna reacts like a cartoon junkie. Yeah, I don't mind tea, Adam. I don't mind. I usually go with Yorkshire tea bags because they're stronger than a lot of the other ones. But the other thing I do too is I've got ginger tea. And if you've got an upset stomach, nothing does it better than ginger. So I'll make up some Chinese ginger tea, and that settles an upset stomach really fast. Yep. And nice thing is that Aldi here occasionally has Yorkshire tea, and I'll buy like 200 bags. Well, I've got 7 minutes to go. Any last minute questions? Have I got through the list? That's the important one. Almost. Here's something that pisses me off, and I know nobody in the chat does this, but I've got one YouTube commenter, and every time a particular company who send me movies announces a new release, and the way it works when I get reviewed copies of things is they'll send me an email and I'll tick off the ones I want, and if they want to, they'll send them to me. They don't send me everything, but if they feel I will give them value, they will send me a copy of those movies. In fact, I've got 3 box sets from Umbrella I'm going to do in my next video, which I really like. But one commenter will leave a comment not related to the video they're commenting on every single time, saying, when are you doing these movies from Umbrella? I need to know. And I ignore them. And then I get a second comment going, I'm waiting patiently. And then they'll use another username to ask the same question. I've got this incredibly annoying. It's like having a mosquito buzzing around your ear when you're trying to sleep. Has anybody got any good solutions to that? Yeah, Adam, give me a film question. Absolutely. I'm happy for that. But yeah, I've got one annoying comment. Everybody else is really nice. But there's one person whom I've asked not to do this anymore, keeps doing it. Deb says that commenter is so annoying. Yeah, they are. I don't know whether they're on the autism spectrum or whether they're just obsessive about that particular company. And I don't want to kind of mention the company, but It just annoys the hell out of me. What film am I looking forward to watching next? I'll give you an odd answer, Adam, because I've been thinking about this. I want to see the Supergirl movie. Because the Supergirl movie, I want a good superhero movie to see. And the Supergirl movie looks like it's going to be fun. I've read the comic book upon which it's based. And I think it's a nice, complex character in there. It's got Lobo in there as well, played by Jason Momoa. But Millie Orford, who's playing Supergirl, apart from anything else, is an Australian. And I really am in the mood for a good, somewhat different superhero movie to come out that I can go and see. So I'm definitely going to be doing that. There was one other, I'll think about it. I'll think of what it is in a sec, that I know Sal wants to see as well. If I'm watching a very old movie you've never seen before, do I consider that nostalgia for Sal? I think nostalgia is something different. I think nostalgia is, I saw this when I was 7, and it's the best movie in the world. And even though I can see that it was mediocre at best, I'm going to say it's the best in the world. I'm going to say that every movie after it is bad. I think nostalgia is nice. I think there's a comfort to it. I think there are movies that we love because of that nostalgia. But I think it can also be toxic. I think it can also inhibit us from enjoying new things that are interesting. And there is a certain cohort of the people who watch my videos who only watch my videos when I'm talking about old movies. I mean, I respect their opinion to a certain extent, but I also want to encourage people to find new things, because it can't just be the oldies channel. There is good new stuff coming out, and I search more than people realize to try to find things that I think people will enjoy in the new stuff. So if I'm watching it for the first time, it's not nostalgia, it's discovery. Adam says, art shouldn't have nostalgia, it has place and time. Yeah. What are the most underrated superhero movies? My suggestion, Sky High. I like The Return of Captain Invisible. That's a lot of fun. I think Brightburn, the evil Superman movie that James Gunn made before he hit big with Guardians of the Galaxy, is interesting. I think superhero movies are just such a broad genre that you can tell any kind of story with them. I mean, I enjoyed watching The Boys, and I think that the climax of The Boys was a good ending to it. But I'd say Brightburn and probably The Return to Captain Invincible. KN says it can be hard to step out of yourself. Yeah, but once you do, I think it's something you can become practiced at. And I think it's something that really we can stop from just being fogies. I mean, there are lots of movies I like that are old. I'll rewatch Puff and Stuff every few years. I'll rewatch the Monkeys movie Head because I like those films. But they're not the only movies I watch. I want to see what the next thing is. I want someone new to tell me a story from a different viewpoint that I am not a part of and that I would never consider. I love that. I mean, watching Backrooms and Obsession, I was incredibly enthusiastic about that because these are people who were born in the 21st century who are starting to make movies. And I want to see what they will do. I love that idea. I love the passionate way they're making films as well. And yes, I will enjoy continuing to discover old movies. I saw Topper for the first time with Cary Grant, and I love that. But I will also find new things. Adam says, films art needs the context of time. I'm into all of it, yeah. Guess what, people? We really must knock that naughty clock that says it's time to go. It goes so fast, our time has passed, and we must end our show. Thank you to everybody for being part of this live stream. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to go now and have a snack and have another coffee and get the day started. Apart from this, really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for being part of this. You make it work. Back with the Wednesday video where I'm going to be doing the umbrella unboxing, and then Science Fiction Saturday again. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Friday. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody else. KN, For Sale, everybody. And I will catch you guys later.